I call the May 14th, 2024 City Council regular meeting and work study session to order. City Clerk Ben Lane, please conduct the roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor David Ortega.
Present.
Vice Mayor Solange Whitehead.
Here.
Council members Tammy Caputi,
Here.
Tom Durham,
Here.
Barry Graham, Betty Janik,
Here.
and Kathy Littlefield. Councilwoman Littlefield, are you there?
Oh, she's wrong.
City Manager Jim Thompson,
Here.
City Attorney Sherry Scott,
Here.
City Treasurer Sonia Andrews,
Here.
Acting City Auditor Leigh Clough,
Here.
and the clerk is present. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. We have Scottsdale Police Sergeant Sean Ryan, as well as Detective Dustin Patrick and Firefighter Jake Laurent. Should anyone need assistance, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, at this time, we draw attention to the ongoing wars in foreign countries as they fight to protect their democracy and freedom. I also ask that we think about the men and women in our military who are in danger at this time and for their duty. So I ask us to join and pause in silent reflection for these war-torn countries. Thank you. This time we will have a presentation pertaining to the class of 2024 Scottsdale 101 Citizens Academy. I'll ask Christy Hill, the citizen liaison, to come forward and give us a presentation on good news. Yay.
Mayor Ortega, members of the council, I'm Christy Hill, and I'm responsible for implementing Scottsdale Government 101 Citizen Academy. The Scottsdale 101 Citizen Academy is designed to equip participants with the knowledge and skills to actively participate in the democratic process, understand local governance, and make a positive impact on their community. Our carefully curated curriculum, say that 3 times fast, covers a wide range of topics from understanding the fundamentals of local government to exploring the intricacies of public policy. Academy members learn from city leaders and department heads and engage with them in an intimate setting. In addition to the 24 classroom hours, experiential learning, and a networking breakfast, 2 service projects are required for graduation. The Love Scottsdale projects were a great success, including participating in an Earth Week Adopt-A-Road cleanup, collecting towels for a mom and pup rescue agency, coordinating an educational hike tour at Frasefield Trail and the Preserve, baking and cooking for public safety, attending open houses, council commission meetings, as well as volunteering for events and just spreading the good word of our city services. In short, they got out in our community and love Scottsdale. Those experiences helped to motivate and prepare a few of our Academy members who interviewed for boards and commission positions this evening. Before our graduates speak, please take a moment to recognize Winfield Scott, who's sitting amongst us. He's the co-founder of Scottsdale and is sitting in the Kiva, and he was part of our receiving line at graduation across the street in the Community Design Studio. Tonight we have 3 Academy members who will share their thoughts and experiences on Scottsdale 101 Citizen Academy, and following their presentations, the mayor will recognize them and pull them all up for a picture. So with that, Sandra Barr would be first, and if you'll come up in this order. Neil Charfalia is number 2, and Tom Droz.
Good evening, members of the Scottsdale City Council. My name is Sandra Barr, and I'm honored to stand here with you today to share my experiences with the Scottsdale 101 Citizens Academy. As a native of Scottsdale, I grew up taking for granted the smooth operations of our city, the clean water from the tap, well-paved streets, and dynamic community events like the Parada del Sol Parade and Mighty Mud Mania. These aspects of our city seemed almost magical, seamlessly perfect, and I never paused to consider the effort, manpower, and planning required to ensure everything ran smoothly. Over the years, in my role as an editor for various Valley publications, I've had the opportunity to interview local politicians and influential figures. It was through these interactions that I realized how little I truly understood about the inner workings of our city. This revelation led me to the Scottsdale 101 Citizens Academy, which promised an in-depth exploration of our local government and the diverse elements that make Scottsdale a world-class destination. I knew I had to be part of it. The Academy has been an eye-opening experience. Each session unveiled the intricate layers of city operations, from public works to community services and emergency services. Engaging with key figures such as Mayor David Ortega, City Manager Jim Thompson, and Fire Chief Tom Shannon provided invaluable insights into the city's governance and strategic planning. These interactions underscored the dedication and expertise that our city leaders and staff bring to their roles every day. One of the most impactful aspects of the Academy for me was the opportunity to witness firsthand the proactive steps our city is taking towards sustainability, particularly in water conservation. Understanding the meticulous planning behind our water management has given me a new appreciation for the city's efforts to secure a sustainable future for all residents. As an active user of Scottsdale's many parks, equestrian facilities, and the McDowell-Sonoran Preserve, I have seen firsthand the value these spaces bring to our community. My participation in the Academy has not only enriched my knowledge, but also strengthened my commitment to contributing to our city's future in any way I can. The Academy has inspired me to become more involved and to support the continued growth and enhancement of these vital community services. In conclusion, the Academy has been an extraordinary journey of discovery and empowerment. It has prepared my fellow classmates and me to take a more active role in our city's future and to engage with our community with vigor and insight. I'm excited about the opportunities to contribute and make a meaningful impact in our beloved city because of this Academy. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to continuing my journey of civic involvement and supporting our amazing Scottsdale community and all the horse lovers in it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening, Mayor Ortega, Vice Mayor Whitehead, and council members. My name is Neil Charfalia. First, let me thank you so much for offering the Citizens Academy to our residents. This, along with the police, the water services, and the fire academy, really demonstrates Scottsdale's commitment to educating its citizens about the inner workings of the government. Gaining a deeper understanding of local governance, from city councils to the various departments, enables all of us residents to actively contribute to shape a better future for our community. Over the past 8 weeks, all the presenters exhibited great enthusiasm for their work, and we're happy to discuss any and all questions that they were peppered with, and they were peppered with quite a few. In my mind, they were almost the antithesis of the stereotypical civil servant, and that made me pleased. We've learned so much. Coming home every Thursday for lunch, my wife was there waiting for me. Sometimes she came later because her golf game ran late. And the first words out of my mouth were, "Did you know that?" As in, did you know that the U.S. city with the most overnight stays in Scottsdale is Phoenix? Did you know that the most important consideration in the installation and design of a roundabout is not traffic flow, but safety and avoiding serious collisions? Did you know that the Princess Hotel complex contributes 2% of its gross revenues to Scottsdale in the form of rents? I didn't know those things then, but I do now, and I know a lot more, and so on and so on. We were immersed in the city's history, notable personalities, art and architecture programs, and in the rich opportunities available. I'd like to highlight just one session in particular, not because it was better or worse or more interesting, but the Blue Zones project, which is a relatively new project here in Scottsdale. Sarah Kearney, its executive director, presented the program and described it in fairly great detail, and I think it really is an interesting program for Scottsdale. It's a new concept, but seems to ideal fit with the ethos of our city, with the partnership of the city and various institutions and companies around the city to promote increased wellness, increased longevity, and increased quality of life. I thought that was just a terrific notion, and I think it's something that I will try and learn more about and participate more in as well. I was also pleased to learn that Arcadia Farms was recently named our first certified Blue Zones restaurant, and that was pleasing to hear as well. Parenthetically, it cheered me to see Sarah again, because some years ago she served with me on the Scottsdale Sister Cities Board, so it was good to reacquaint myself with her. Let me close saying how heartening it was to witness the enthusiastic participation of all our classmates. Our diverse questions and comments came from a wide array of interests and concerns. The fact that the Academy was oversubscribed, and I think is always oversubscribed, is testament to the fact that that Scottsdale is continuing to attract qualified citizens who want to do more for it. Finally, let me thank Christy, who, in spite of all the peppered questions that dragged on and on, kept the trains running on time. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Droz, and I'm speaking to you as a graduate of the Scottsdale 101 Citizens Academy. As a docent with the Scottsdale Historical Society, I have the privilege of speaking with visitors from all over the world who come to Scottsdale for a wide variety of reasons. While the reasons may vary, it became apparent that some of our visitors are here because they're looking at Scottsdale as their new home. I recognized that despite being a lifelong resident of Scottsdale and a Scottsdale history buff, my knowledge of the Scottsdale of today was lacking. Viewing myself as an ambassador to a wonderful city, I felt an obligation to learn more about the wonderful city Scottsdale has become. As I sat and listened to our various speakers, I couldn't help but reflect upon our fledgling roots and the path of growth Scottsdale blazed in becoming the world-class community we are today. The Scottsdale 101 Citizens Academy drove this point home. To put things in perspective, during July 1951, our 5-member Common Council established Scottsdale's first annual town budget. I suppose in 1951, $19,022 seemed like a lot of money. But in all fairness, and despite all of them being accomplished businessmen, they had no experience in running a small town, which might explain why actual expenditures for the year ended up at $29,420. Today, Scottsdale has an annual budget in excess of $2.5 billion. One of the primary reasons the citizens of Scottsdale voted in favor of incorporation in June of 1951 was the need for proper fire protection services. Beginning January 1, 1952, our annual cost for fire protection with one privately owned fire station was set at $4,260. Today, the Scottsdale Fire Department has an annual budget in excess of $66 million with 15 fire stations, all equipped with state-of-the-art firefighting and life-saving equipment. Between August 1951, with the hiring of Hurley Pruitt as Scottsdale's first town marshal, and March 1963, with the hiring of Walter C. Nemitz as Scottsdale's first chief of police, the town marshal's office grew from 1 member to 47 members. Today, the Scottsdale Police Department is approaching 700 members strong with 4 police stations. The Scottsdale 101 Citizens Academy hammered home for me the fact that a fledgling community who endured more than its fair share of growing pains can indeed grow into a world-class community. From the 2,032 residents who came before and from the 243,000 plus residents we have today, we owe our thanks to past, present, and future leaders of the world-class community we call Scottsdale. And on a personal note, I'd like to extend a warm thank you to both Christy Hill and Bruce Wall, who made the Scottsdale 101 Citizens Academy both an enjoyable and a worthwhile learning experience, one that I will not soon forget. Thank you.
Congratulations, Scottsdale 101 graduates. Each one of us is shaped by Scottsdale, and in turn, we shape Scottsdale. So why don't you all stand up and let's come and then come forward. Excellent. At this point, we will move on to the opportunity for public comment. Public comment, per our charter, allows members of the public to come forward. There were no requests for public comment. Therefore, I will close public comment. Another public service announcement. The council rules of procedure allow citizens attending council to observe the same rules of order and decorum that we apply to ourselves and certainly to city staff. So unauthorized remarks or demonstrations from the audience is not permitted. It would help us keep the meeting moving quickly. Next, I would mention that according to our rules, council members will not be sending or receiving any electronic communications during public meetings or executive sessions. Only electronic devices provided to us to aid in our consultation is permitted. Finally, we would move on to the opportunity to go for our excuse me. Next, we will go to approval of minutes. And at this point, especially since Councilwoman Kathy Littlefield is remote, so I will be calling on her. I request a motion to approve special meeting minutes of April 2nd, 2024, executive session meeting minutes of April 2nd, 2024, regular meeting minutes of April 2nd, 2024.
So moved. Second.
Next, we have a motion and a second. Please record your vote. And I will call on Councilwoman Littlefield.
Yes.
Councilmember Durham. Thank you. So that is unanimous. Next, we will move on to consent agenda items. They are items number 1 through 11. There's also an opportunity for the public to comment on consent agenda items. And I will open that for public comment. Seeing none, I will close public comment. At this point, do council members have any questions regarding consent agenda items 1 through 11?
Mayor,
Yes?
I motion to approve items on the consent agenda 1 through 11.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. And I will call on Councilwoman Littlefield.
Yes.
Thank you. So we are unanimous. Next, we will move to item number 12, which is the public hearing on and adoption of the fiscal year rates and fees. We have our presenter coming forward, Anna Leah Johnson. She's the acting budget director. How are you? Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Mayor stated, this is a public hearing and request to adopt the fiscal year 24-25 rates and fees. On March 5th, divisions presented in detail their proposed new or changes to rates and fees. Those proposed rates and fees were then posted to the city's website on March 11th, so the public would have the opportunity to review at least 60 days prior to this evening's meeting. Tonight serves as the final public hearing. Instead of having each division come back for a second time to walk you through the 60-plus slides that were shown back in March, I will give you a brief recap. I will note the details of the proposed rates and fees that are included in your council report, and the original March 5th presentation, it's part of tonight's packet. Additionally, divisions are available this evening for questions. This slide summarizes the forecasted revenue based on the rate and fee proposals. Most proposals will take effect on July 1st, 2024. For the non-enterprise funds, rates and fees increases are proposed to address inflation, improve customer experience and timeliness, as well as staffing costs. Planning and development services proposed increases to various permit fees and wireless communication facilities in right-of-way fees. Additionally, there is a proposed new rezoning application fee for each project covering up to 20 acres that currently has no fee and requires significant staff time. Also, Planning and Development Services Department proposed a CIP stormwater fee increase of $1 paid by water customers that would be dedicated to capital drainage and flood control projects. Community Services proposed change to the cost recovery formula for adaptive recreation programs and a cost recovery of the stadium porter fee. Additionally, Westworld proposed commercial use fees increases for the Tony Nelson Equestrian Center, the North Hall and the South Hall. On Public Safety Police, they proposed the increase of off-duty rates and on-body camera video public request fees. The City Court proposed various fees increases to address inflation, aligned fees charged by other municipal courts. Finally, the City Attorney proposed the increase to service enhancement fee to provide defendants in the City Court with enhanced services such as weekend and holiday jail court, diversion programs, probation, and home monitoring. For the enterprise funds, Water Resources and Public Works Solid Waste presented changes to the rates and fees to address inflationary impacts from higher cost of materials, labor, equipment, disposal, landfill, and recycling. The total revenue impact for non-enterprise funds is $3.5 million, and from enterprise funds is $14.4 million. In conclusion, we're recommending adopting the associated ordinances shown and resolutions shown in this slide. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Okay, well, thank you. And at this point, I do want to clarify, this is an open public hearing, and I'm told there is no public comment, therefore, on this matter. Therefore, I will close public comment. I see no question. Councilmember Graham, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. Anna Leah, is this your total presentation? Do you have anything more to continue?
No.
Okay.
This is the total presentation.
Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. So we're hiking fees for a lot, pretty much everything, right? I mean, across the board.
Yeah.
What do you, I don't know if it's in the packet or not, but what is like, we got to have like an average fee increase for our water users. What can the average water user expect to be paying in increased fees? Do you have that information?
I'm going to defer to Brian Biesmeyer
Okay.
to answer that question.
Mayor, Councilmember Graham, the average revenue increase for the revenue for water is 6.3%. Does that answer your question? Or are you looking for the average cost? In the first,
Yeah.
we can go back and pull those slides up, but in the first presentation, we showed it for the average water user with a 5/8 inch, with a 3/4 and a 1 inch, and it really depended on each of those sizes and
Yeah.
how much water each of those users did.
So that is kind of helpful, but I mean, like, what's the average residential water bill for a single family in Scottsdale? Do you know that answer?
I don't, because
I know
they vary
it's
by those
varied.
different factors. And we can get you that, but
You think it's about $150 a month?
no, you're talking about total bill.
Yeah.
So it's not 150 for water.
Right.
Because you have to think about the services. So you're getting water service, wastewater service, solid waste services, all on a single bill.
Right. So
Now,
water,
what that bill is, I don't have the average on that. That's,
maybe $50 a month, would you say?
I'm not in a position to answer that.
Okay.
I don't want to hazard a response.
And Councilman, I think we're looking at the big picture here.
Yes.
So, if all of the supporting information was reviewed 2 meetings ago with line by line, for instance, restaurants
Mayor-
and other areas, so.
Mayor, thank you. This is about just distilling a bunch of information and dozens of pages of dense information, just so that the average resident can kind of wrap their arms around it. I think that's important, because when we sit up here and we talk about you're going to pay more, I think what we need to do is just sort of explain to the user what the reason we have to charge more. And so I just think that they deserve that, to kind of hear a better explanation for, beyond increased costs, because we know the CPI went up, according to the packet, 3.2%. We're hiking fees 8, 10, 12%, and so we see bigger hikes. I mean, did we add more? Did we build more? So there's a lot of questions. People want to know questions about, do we have repairs and maintenance that have spiked? Do we have capital expenditures that unplanned or planned that need to be covered with increased revenue?
Okay,
Is our-
Councilman, I'll defer to the city treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor.
These have been slides presented in the past, so either we're going to go over what had been presented. This is the third readout on these. So let me defer to the city treasurer. We'll pull up the slides that had been shown in the past and explained in the past.
Thank you, Mayor.
So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. Councilmember Graham, thank you for that question. 50% of our water users have a 1-inch meter. So for the 1-inch meter, with a typical use of 16,000 gallons, we're looking at an increase of $6.65. So the current fees, the typical user with a 1-inch meter, 16,000 gallons of water use, 11,000 gallons of sewer usage, their bill is $112.02, and it'll go up to $118.67. The other 50% of our water users are pretty much split between a 5/8 inch and a 3/4 inch. And for a 5/8 inch, the increase is $2.20, and for the 3/4 inch, the increase is about $3.80. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Sonia. What was the increase last year? Because we hiked fees and rates last year. Do you remember what the percentages were?
I don't have that.
It's on the presentation.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Okay.
Let me get to it, sorry. So it was 4.2% on the water and 5.8% on sewer, for a 4.7 average.
Okay. So what could we tell the average resident that the increase is getting sharper? Is it, as
I
far
think they
as-
feel it I think everyone feels it as inflation hits us. The water department is no different. We have increased chemicals, increased power, all the same factors. Actually, I take that back. Chemicals we've actually stabilized, but power, all the additional costs have been going up. And so the water department, like everyone, feels those inflationary pressures.
Thank you, Brian. Sonia, how are the cash reserves for the enterprise fund? How much cash do they have on hand?
So Mayor, Council, Councilmember Graham, for the water and sewer fund, we have forecasted about 89.5 million in ending fund balance, of which 27.9 million are their operating reserves, 5 million for drought reserves, and 44 million for their asset capital reserves.
What was the cash reserve at the end of fiscal 23?
Hang on a sec. Sorry, give me a moment to
Okay.
pull that up.
Okay, we can. I guess I'm trying to I'm just trying to be able to explain to when we have to face the voters why we hike their fees and rates. Is it because, percentage of our fees as a percentage of, is repairs and maintenance as a percentage of revenues, is that going up sharply? Is there capital expenditures that are going up sharply? Like, what's the allocation of cash? What's the trend line? How do I explain that to residents?
So a lot of our rate increase is due to the fact that we have significant capital infrastructure needs. A lot of our water sewer, it's a generational infrastructure replacement and renewal in our water and sewer infrastructure. That's one of the reasons. I think Brian can also add to some of the other reasons that we have, some of the large capital projects that we have.
Thank you, Sonia. This is the list of CIP projects that are driving some of that. It's the Bartlett Dam investments, it's drought for the ASR wells, it's our automated meter reading program, as well as booster station improvements.
I'm sorry, Brian, to cut you off. While he's explaining that, Sonia, can you look up? Can you tell us about debt service coverage ratio, how we are on debt service and as a percentage of revenues?
I have that also.
Yeah, I think let's answer one at a time, and all of these are part of a responsible audited expenditures that we have to have money and prepared for renovation, replacement, and growth.
Thanks,
Now,
Brian. I'm so sorry about that.
So
Thank you,
one
Mayor.
question at a time, and
Yeah.
at this point, go ahead, Brian.
Mayor, Councilman Graham, I have that in one of the displays here. So
Oh,
you
very
can
good.
see on the
It's all there.
debt coverage for Scottsdale Water's 2.95.
And how has it been improving?
It's
the
been
trend
about
line?
the same. We've been hovering right around the upper quartile for debt
Okay.
service.
Okay, Sonia, that answers that question.
So, Councilmember Graham, to answer your previous question, the Water and Sewer Fund has $193 million in cash and investments at the end of 2023.
Okay, very good. You seem like you're going to say something else, but maybe not.
So generally speaking, these are all in the 50-page report that we have right now, and they're just referring to what's in your packet, and everyone's packet's public information, and it was reviewed in detail. So.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and thank you for that reminder. It is in the public packet, and it's just a reminder that it is there because we've gotten feedback about why are you hiking our fees, and I just want to be able to explain to those residents, and so I appreciate answering the questions, and And I'll pause my questions for the time being. Thanks, Brian, Sonia.
Okay, we have Councilmember Durham and then Vice Mayor Whitehead.
Thank you, Mayor. It's very easy to explain to voters why we need to increase the fees. Voters experience inflation in their normal lives. They're paying more for gasoline. They're paying more for all the services that they buy. And, you know, at the end, the city is a service organization. People want water coming out of their faucets. And the cost of producing water to come out of a faucet is increasing because, as we know, there are problems of scarcity. And so the cost of our water is going up. The cost of our construction projects to provide that water is going up. The price that we must pay employees to keep that running is going up. We've seen before that I think the construction is one of the items that has gone up the most over the last few years. I think I've seen figures of 20% or something like that. That's a very big, important part of what we produce because we have to serve construction projects. And we can't eat those costs. When we have increased costs for police, one of the things we're doing here is increasing fees for off-duty officers. We're increasing fees to many of our services because that's part of the world we live in. And I think our voters understand that. They're encountering these same pressures every single day. So it's pretty easy to explain why we need to increase fees for those services. I think there was a reference to the increase in water. It was 6%. And, you know, if I could get away with 6% inflation, I'd be throwing a party because that's a pretty good number in the environment that we have today. So it's very easy to explain why we are increasing this. If you want these services, unfortunately, these are the costs that we have to endure as a city, and we can't stay around for very long without passing those on. You know, somebody once said, you know, you can't make it up on volume. And if we're selling our services at rates that are below what it costs us, we can't make that up on volume. And it would be fiscally irresponsible to try to avoid carefully considering these costs of our services. So thank you.
Vice Mayor Whitehead, Councilwoman Janik.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the members of the public, can you, City Manager or Mr. Lane, City Clerk, tell me what date we reviewed all these fees in detail?
Vice Mayor, I believe it was in April. Let me check the agenda.
Yeah, so it's important for people who are watching this meeting or here, the people here know this already, that the City Council has gone through these fees and had a discussion in detail. And the great thing, one of the many great things about living in the city of Scottsdale is that any of us can watch past City Council meetings from years past. So if reading these multi-page documents isn't desirable, it's always easy to just put the past meetings on and listen to it while cooking or something else. So we have reviewed all of these fees. I'm not going to repeat what Councilman Durham said, but, and I hate to bring Brian Looks Comfortable again, but perhaps you can even tell me from then, we are feeling the pressures of changes. The only thing certain in life is change. And whereas the city of Scottsdale and the rest of the valley has had very cheap water for generations, we're now coming to the realization that we are charging less than what it costs us. We have to keep up. Unlike a publicly traded company or a for-profit company, a city operates the city charges fees only that which it costs to provide the service. So the city will never charge a resident more money than it costs to provide whatever service it is that the resident is getting. Do you know offhand, Brian, you had said this in one of the past presentations, the increased percentage, the increased cost of water and roughly the increased cost of delivery? I know that's the power you had mentioned.
I don't have it. If I could throw the
Let
slides up
me
there.
ask City Manager to clarify the first question about how these fees have been reviewed to begin with.
Thank you,
Go ahead,
Mr.
City.
Mayor, and if you could pull up slide 17 as well, and that should answer the second question, but the first question was March 5th, was
Thank
the first time.
Okay, so anybody who wants to watch the earlier review where we discussed all of these fees, please pull that up from the city website. Go ahead. So it looks like,
Yeah.
okay, so water costs are up 9% from CAP, which is the majority of our water, 13% from SRP. And then we have, just as we did 22 years ago or 24 years ago, we're investing in future water. You know, 20-something years ago, the city of Scottsdale made the decision to build the water treatment plant that we have that is that is producing drinking water out of wastewater. So once again, and those were some of the projects that Mr. Biesmeyer had up, the city is again investing in future water so that 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, you turn on the tap and you get that water. So I do think it's impressive that the fees are going up roughly 6%. We're making all of these investments in infrastructure for future water and our own costs, and this is just for the water, not the delivery, because power to deliver the water is going up. The CAP cost is going up 9%, and SRP water costs are going up 13%. So I think that's a good summary of, A, how a resident can learn more about these fees, B, how we decide on how we calculate fees, and just an example of how we're maintaining our fees very low despite the incredible pressures, price pressures we, your city of Scottsdale, are facing. So with that, I am going to motion to adopt resolution number 13091 and ordinance number 4630, amending Scottsdale Revised Code, Chapter 49, Water, Sewer, and Sewage Disposal, Sewer Water Reclamation Rates, and Miscellaneous Rates effective July 1, 2024, and adjusting water rate volumetric and base charges effective November 1, 2024, and adopt ordinance number 4631, amending Scottsdale Revised Code 24, solid waste management by adjusting solid waste rates and charges effective July 1, 2024, adopt ordinance number 4632, amending Scottsdale Revised Code, Chapter 16, licenses, taxation, and miscellaneous business regulations by adjusting the private hauler fee effective July 1, 2024, adopt ordinance number 4634, amending Scottsdale Revised Code, Chapter 9, relating to a service enhancement fee effective July 1, 2024, adopt ordinance number 4635, amending Scottsdale Revised Code, Chapter 9, relating to funds, costs, and fees of the city clerk, effective July 1, 2024, adopt resolution number 13109, authorizing and approving adjustments to the Planning and Development Services Department's fees and charges, adopt resolution number 13112, authorizing and approving adjustments to the Community Services Division schedule of program charges, rental fees, and fines to be effective July 1, 2024, authorizing the city manager or designee to execute Scottsdale Stadium and Indian School Park use agreements, negotiated fees, or fees for areas not typically reserved, and to execute Westworld agreements with negotiated fees, adopt resolution number 13117, increasing police department hourly fees for off-duty officers and increasing on-body camera request fees.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Also, City Treasurer, did you have something to add? Okay.
Yes, sorry, Mayor. I wanted to correct what I said earlier in answer to Councilmember Graham's question on the cash in the water and sewer fund. I think I might have said 193,000. It's 193.8 million. However, there's 74.2 million in current liabilities and 276.4 million in long-term liabilities. So you really have to look at that in combination with the liabilities. Thank you.
Thank you. I have some comments, and then we have Councilwoman Caputi and Janet. Okay, there's nothing more important than our own water security, managing waste, having the conservation plan built into encouraging people to conserve. The entire public relations effort is all bundled in a comprehensive manner, and these rates and fees are not just flimsy numbers. We have to support the replacement of pumps, pipes, and most of all, to know that we have reliable people in the field. I was with the field operators last Thursday for their breakfast, and they get up at 5 in the morning and they go out and they look for and maintain our water system, and they are paid, and they're very dedicated with what they do. Same thing with transportation. So all of these add up to essentially our own financial security, the underpinning the value of our properties. And at one point someone said, these are the voters we have to explain this to. These are water customers. Water customers are business people, restaurants, hospitals, schools. They rely on our city service to be very reliable and to be project forward all the anticipated costs so that they are assured that their schools and classrooms can be remain open and everything is done in an orderly way. We also have backup systems and generators that allow the pumps to run. If there's a failure of the electrical system, we could say, well, let's do without that, but we wouldn't have the reliable, redundant, and measurable results that we have. If you look at failures of cities elsewhere, many of them have to do with the failure of infrastructure, and there's several we can read about that neglected to look forward and project their own water costs, as well as being responsible stewards of the public's trust. So all of this is encompassed in it. There's 71 pages in this. We've had it for 2 weeks, and it was actually sent, we've had it since March, April, May. Here we are, and we can answer these questions reliably. We rely on our staff to do so, and we've asked some tough questions, I thought, as well. They've been asked and answered. I'm very confident that we are being good stewards, and I'm not just referring to people as voters. I'm referring to them as water users, and they have meters that, with the expectations that we're going to fulfill that clean, pure water and reliable usage to them, so they will have a profitable business or an education facility. Next, I'll go to Councilwoman Caputi and then Councilwoman Janik.
Sonia, these are enterprise funds, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And so what that means is that they have to actually cover their costs. I think we've had a couple of comments up here already. In other words, as their costs go up, they have to absorb them. If an enterprise fund was to run at a deficit, where would we get the money from? Like if the water department, if our water folks didn't cover their costs, then where would the money come from if they were running at a deficit?
We would have to increase their fees. And also the fees are established by our consultant who does a fee study for us, and it's based on industry practices in fee setting. So a lot of detailed analysis and cost methodology, industry standard cost methodology goes into setting the fees. So yes, there is no funding source to pay for.
Right, they're self-supporting.
Correct.
Okay, so, I mean, I guess I just want to repeat what everyone else has already said on the dais. You know, simply better service for a world-class city. I think I've said that 10 times now from the dais. That is actually our city motto, and our residents are used to paying for exceptional services, and we need to cover our costs. So we have the most sophisticated water treatment facility of anywhere in the country, and we're constantly making investments for the future, and that's what our residents expect. So I think that we have, you know, the best services and amenities, the lowest taxes and fees, some of the lowest taxes and fees of any city in the valley. So I think we're doing an exceptional job for our customers. Thank you.
Okay, I see Councilwoman Janik, and then I'll call on Councilwoman Littlefield remotely.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want everybody to know that all of the departments are very judicious when they make decisions to increase cost and to undertake new projects. Everything is totally transparent for all the people in our community to see what we're doing and to know why we're doing it. And all the departments are available to answer specific questions, so total transparency. And the other thing that I think sets Scottsdale way ahead of most other communities is that we are intelligent enough to look ahead, to see the technology that's on the horizon, to see the benefits for that, and to prepare for that in a very educated and systematic fashion. And for example, the Bartlett Dam, we are working on it. We are studying it. Yes, there will be expenses, but we will be prepared to make sure that we continue to provide services, and especially water, in the future, and not just tomorrow or in a year or two, but 10, 20 years in the future. So thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Littlefield, did you have a comment that would?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I basically agree with what our council has been saying, but I would like to add one caveat, and that is the city water provides a vital service, life and death service to our citizens. They have to have water. And this is something that we need to think about as we move forward. I think what we're doing is good for tonight, but we need to be cognizant of the fact that many of our citizens are not enjoying the same increases in their income in order to cover these additional costs for water here in Scottsdale, and that we are asking them to do that just for our services to them. I understand that's reasonable. I understand we need to do that, but I think it's something that we do need to think about going forward. Is they may not be getting the same increases in income, and we may be pinching them in other areas. So that's a concern, because I don't believe that any of us want to harm citizens in that manner. So I do think that this has been done well. I approve it, but I think that that's just something we ought to keep in the back of our heads. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so we'll have a second round. Please be brief. Councilmember Graham, Councilmember Durham, Councilwoman Vice Mayor Whitehead.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be brief. I appreciate staff answering my questions. This is staff takes tough questions, and so this is about explaining to voters. This is about explaining to water users and customers why we're hiking their rates multiple years in a row, because like Councilmember Littlefield said, they are getting bitten by the inflationary bug. Their costs are going up, and everything else around them without commensurate revenue increases, most likely for many people. I think we have strong debt service coverage ratio. I think we have good cash reserves. I do think residents are getting hit in pretty much every other aspect of their life. And so I think it's important that we don't just wave this through, and that we talk about it, we ask tough questions about it, we debate it, and I'm really pleased to see my colleagues up here and their spirited debate about this topic, because we all feel how this makes us feel, and how our residents feel about this. With that, I want to make sure that we don't forget about the ratepayer, and I'd like to keep an eye on these metrics and these ratios to make sure that our enterprise funds are with their comparators and their peers. And because, like Councilwoman Littlefield said, we have an exceptional water department, and it is extremely important for the quality of life. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Durham, and then Vice Mayor Whitehead.
Thank you, Mayor. One way of explaining this is to say to someone, hey, lucky you don't live in Mesa, because if you look at slide 31 on our package, as usual, our costs are among the lowest in the valley. I think we're right above Chandler, according to slide 31. And Tempe, Phoenix, Gilbert, Glendale, Peoria, Mesa are all charging more for water, in some cases significantly more. So I think this shows what we have been saying for many, many years, that we have an incredible staff that keeps our prices low and keeps our costs of operation and taxes among the lowest in the valley. So we should all be thankful for the fact that we live in Scottsdale and not Mesa. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Whitehead, and then we will have a
Thank
vote.
you, Mayor. I do want to address what Councilwoman Littlefield said. So not all accounts are charged the same amount. So it's by tier. And so unlike the city of Phoenix, if we're comparing cities, the city of Scottsdale is not raising the fee on tier 1. Is that correct? So that means that the people that, for perhaps a fixed income senior that is using the amount of water needed and no more, their rates aren't going up. So I think that's particularly noteworthy, how the city absolutely looks at these fee increases from a very personal standpoint. And as the mayor pointed out, these are water users. So it's not just individuals, it's businesses that are, have decided to work in Scottsdale and they need water and they're willing to pay for it. So I just want to again thank our staff for, in fact, thinking about those fixed income seniors and keeping those fees, raising those fees zero. And with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. And in conclusion, also, there's a conservation formula that if you save water, your rates will go down. Our council approved that. That's built into this as well. Please record your vote. Councilman Littlefield.
Yes.
Thank you. We are approved. Next, we will unanimous, and we will next move to item number 13. Item number 13 also includes a public hearing, involves the adoption of the proposed fiscal 2024-25 budget, a tentative budget. This is the adoption of a 5-year capital improvement plan as well. This is one of many readouts that we've had in detail, but please come forward with the presentation for item.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Next slide, please. So tonight's public hearing and tentative budget adoption is part of the required process for adopting our budget. We presented the proposed budget and capital improvement plan in April, and the detailed proposed budget and capital improvement plan is available on our city website. The final budget adoption is scheduled for June 4th, and the property tax adoption is scheduled on June 25th. Next slide. The tentative budget that we're asking Council to adopt tonight sets the maximum expenditure for next year. This is a really important point. Regardless of how much revenues we collect or don't collect, Council approves the maximum expenditures for the city each year through the budget. So once the tentative budget is adopted, the total budget, expenditure budget, cannot increase upon our final budget adoption. We can move things around, but we cannot increase it. So our tentative budget proposed is next slide, sorry, is $2.294.8 billion, made up of $760.6 million in operating budget. That includes our grants and our special programs. $1.68 billion in capital improvements and $465.9 million in contingencies and reserves. Next slide. There is a $2.1 million change from the proposed budget that was presented in April, and the $2.1 million change is for these two items on the slide that was approved by council in April. So funding for the Indian Ben Wash underpass was approved. That increased our budget by $1.5 million, and then also additional funding for the new fire station, which council approved on April 16th, like about $600,000. So our tentative budget is $2.294 billion compared to the $2.292.7 billion that was in the proposed. Next slide. Our tentative budget is 9.4% lower than last year's adopted budget of $2.53 billion, primarily because of our capital improvements. Our operating budget increased by 2.9%. Next slide. And as you know, by state law, we must adopt a budget that is within our expenditure limitation. The tentative budget proposed is at 97% of our expenditure limitation. Next slide. Our tentative budget provides for city services with the city's 1.75% tax rate, which is one of the lowest tax rates in the valley. Next slide. The proposed property tax rate for fiscal year 24-25 is 93.16 cents per $100 of tax assessed value, and that is a 5% or 5.1% decrease from our current year property tax rate. For the tentative budget, we are proposing 60.56 new full-time equivalents, primarily for the fire ambulance program and the new fire station and training facility. And our total FTEs would be at 2,700. Next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a slide off. So next slide. So the capital improvement plan for the 24-25 fiscal year is $1.091 billion, consisting primarily of water and sewer infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, and so on and so forth as listed on this slide. Next slide. And the 5-year capital improvement plan is $2.24 billion, and almost half of that is the water and sewer infrastructure, and the other large category is the transportation. Now keep in mind that for transportation, we have the arterial life cycle program where it's a 70-30% match with the regional tax paying 70%, yet because we're constructing it, the whole cost of it is in our capital improvement program, where 70% of that money is funded from the regional sales tax. So next slide. As mentioned earlier, the capital improvement program tentative budget increased by $2.1 million from the proposed budget that was presented to you in April because of these two items that council approved in April, the increase in grant funding available for the Indian Ben Wash underpass and also the additional funding for the new fire station. That's all I have, and I can answer any questions.
I see Councilmember Graham wish to speak.
Thank you, Sonia. Are people's residents' property tax bills going to go up or down this year?
Sorry. Let's go back to slide number 9. So the city's property tax rate is going to go down from 98.14 cents to 93.16 cents. The property values may be going up, so the actual property tax that's paid may be higher because the property values may be going up, but our rate is going down.
The rate's going down because the value is going up. But I mean, how much as far as collections, receipts, what's the percentage you expect to?
I don't think that's correct. The rate that we set is not based on whether or not it escalates or not.
What did I say that was inaccurate?
You said the rate is going down because the values are going up.
Yes, that's correct.
That's not.
Okay.
Please-
Yeah, that's right.
Sonia, the rate's going down because the value's going up. Is that correct?
So, Mayor, Councilmember Graham, for the primary property tax, we are limited to a 2% levy.
Right.
So as the rates plus new construction plus tort judgments.
So that is correct. That's a correct statement.
The question is revenues is
Correct.
different than the rate.
I know that, and I'm
Okay, but
distinguishing. I'm just saying that what you said was incorrect, Mr. Mayor.
The way you phrased it, I differ
So
with you.
I guess my question, I'm sorry for the back and forth, Sonia. I know the size. But are residents going to pay more? Is their city property tax bill going to go up?
I think it would depend on the assessed value of the property.
But generally, yes.
Let me ask the city manager to answer this.
City manager,
back and
thank
forth.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Graham. That's an it depends, and let me go there. And
I knew you'd go there.
There are some values that have gone down. There's some values that have gone up. So it really depends on your value. Your rate's gone down for which it applies to. So you potentially could go down there. Maybe some that potentially go up.
Can you give an example of a property in Scottsdale that went down in value? I guess maybe if something like.
Yeah, there are properties that go down in value.
Like
on
if
an
something
annual
was
basis.
distressed or went through a
Yeah,
catastrophe.
there's a lot of things that could cause it.
But can you think of a neighborhood in Scottsdale that went down in value?
Yeah, and it may not have gone up by 5.1% the value either, so they could have had a decreased tax. The other thing that you have to consideration too is that it's just not residents. There's a large portion of the
Right.
commercial and new projects that have been built that have come on board that are paying a large sum of the property tax, much the same as when we talk about rates. We receive large sums from many of the businesses who consume a large share of water, likewise for their values of their property. So again, those vary. I'll give you an example. Right now, commercial properties values have gone down in the marketplace than what they were. So they would have a decrease potentially associated with that. Some, if not, depending on their location, depending on the type of tenants they have. So again, it's a very complex question. I think individual owners will, it's beneficial that you actually have a rate deduction, not many. The other portion of that, when you say property tax, and I've had this question posed to me many, many times out in the community, they look at their total property tax bill. Our total portion of the property tax bill on the primary is around 5% of your total tax bill.
Jim.
About 4% on the total secondary portion. So
I
when
understand.
people look at it, they look at their total bill. There
I
could be
know.
other agencies that are actually increasing their rate.
I
I'm
get-
just trying to explain it in
Yeah.
detail because the question was asked, so I
No, it's just-
apologize.
No, I know that's a great explanation, and I appreciate it. I just know that people care about, the rate, that we feel good about that, but most values have sharply increased in their assessed value, and I get that there's other governmental agencies that are probably going to be increasing their bill too. But this bill from Scottsdale, I think for most Scottsdale residents, is going to be going up. So, and I had one more question, and then I'll be done with my questions here. Sonia, can you say a little more about the reduction? So I'm looking at slide 6, capital improvements. What explains the reduction from 1.36 to 1.0? Is that just sort of the ebb and flow timing of borrowings and the CapEx, capital expenditures?
Correct.
Okay, so we had a big CapEx year in fiscal '23, and then this year it's just down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because there's the budget's down 9%, but that's really just a timing thing. So it's not because our tax receipts are up, our operating expenses are up, everything is up, and so I just want to make sure that's clear. Thank you.
Well, some projects were completed during that year, so they don't reoccur because they were completed. And we may have completed $40 million worth of projects, so that that's subtracted from the next carryover. Okay, at this point, I think we have, I want to make sure this is a hearing, and therefore I would call on the public. If there is public comment, they would come forward. Seeing none, therefore I will close public comment. The good news is the property tax rate is going down. And yes, if we look closely at whether it's a water bill or a bill from the city that also has garbage pickup and has recycling fee and all these other things that we can study and look at closely and make some good on-the-ground decisions. Councilwoman Caputi, and then we will take a vote.
I just want to celebrate the fact that we have increased property values in the city of Scottsdale. I think that's something to be excited and happy about. We have the highest property values and some of the lowest property taxes and the most amenities of any city in the valley. So again, this isn't a negative thing. This is a wonderful thing to celebrate. I mean, complaining about the overall dollars going up as your value goes up and your rate goes down, that just seems very strange to me. It's like, as a business owner, if I make more money this year and I have to pay a little bit more in taxes, that's a good thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. So again, I just want to celebrate the fact that all of our property values have gone up while our rate has gone down, and that's something we've done really, really well on this council. Thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Janik, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 4637 as presented or as modified by council, establishing the tentative budget for fiscal year 2024-25 and adopting by reference the state-required budget forms. Establishment of the tentative budget statutory fixes the maximum expenditure limit. The maximum expenditure limit may still be lowered by the City Council before final budget adoption. Adoption of ordinance number 4637 also, A, directs the city clerk to meet obligations regarding publication and notices imposed by the Arizona Revised Statutes and City Charter. B, tentatively authorizes or approves as applicable certain salary adjustments included in the tentative budget for city employees and charter officers and sets the salaries of the presiding judge and associate judges. Number 3, adopt ordinance number 4638 as presented or as modified by council, tentatively adopting the 5-year CIP for fiscal year 2024-25 to fiscal year 2028-29.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please record your vote. Oh, and Councilwoman Littlefield.
Yes.
Okay, we have the motion carries 6 to 1, Member Graham dissenting. Thank you. Next, we will go on to public comment. Public comment is the second opportunity for members of the public to come forward. Seeing none, I will close public comment. Next, we move on to the possibility of citizen petitions. That's item number 14. There were none delivered to the clerk's office. Therefore, I will close out item number 14. Next, we have the work study session. The work study session is allows us to have a less formal setting for the mayor and council to discuss specific topics with each other and city staff and provide staff an opportunity to receive direction from the council, to provide an opportunity for the public. We also provide an opportunity for public comment and the work study. There were no requests from the public to speak. Therefore, I will close public comment. At this point, we will have the full presentation. The quarterly financial and capital improvement plan, CIP updates. The presenters are Sonia Andrews, our city treasurer, and Dan Worth, our public works director.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Next slide. So I repeat this every quarter, but I think it's important that the primary focus of the quarterly financial update is just to highlight the general fund results for revenues and our budget to actuals. So next slide. So our general fund revenues are up compared to budget, primarily because of construction sales tax, and I won't read everything here, and interest earnings that are higher than budget, and our year-to-date expenditures are within our budget with a 3% positive variance, primarily due to salary and vacancy savings as we continue to have the tight labor market and difficulties in hiring. So we have a lot of vacancy savings right now, and that's primarily causing some of that, and also some long lead times with respect to our purchases for vehicles, for example. So we're not able to proceed with spending the money there. So that's why we have some expenditure savings. Next slide. So this just shows you the sales tax by category. And I won't go into details, but basically it's pretty much where we expect it to be. Next slide. And as you can see, this chart shows you the rolling 12-month average of the sales tax revenues, our local sales tax revenues. And for this fiscal year, it's pretty much flattened out compared to last fiscal year, even though compared to budget is higher, but compared to last year, it's pretty much flattened out. Next slide. And this is the total general fund sources for, not just sales tax, but the other revenue sources as well. Next slide. And these are the general fund uses. Again, the uses are where we expect it to be. Next slide. And this is the expenditures by division. I really don't have a whole lot more to comment on it, and I think that's all I have. If you have any questions, otherwise I can, I think this is my last slide, yeah.
Councilman Graham.
Thank you, Sonia. Do you have any, just looking at slide 4, any reason sort of anecdotally for the variance for retail? What do you think as far as economy-wide macro issues, why retail you think might have been higher than budgeted?
So for retail, we expected the consumers to slow down their spending because when we put the budget together, the inflation continued to be high, and we understand that credit card debt is increasing and all those other factors that, from the economic standpoint, the expectation was that the consumers would start pulling back. And as we've all read in the paper, then consumer spending continues to be stronger than expected.
Would you say construction activity is a leading indicator for the economy? Is that kind of a fair statement?
No, because the construction sales tax, there's a delay. There could be up to an 18-month delay. So these...
So that higher than expected for construction doesn't necessarily give you hope that that's a leading indicator?
Correct.
Okay, and then I was also pleased to see, stronger than expected dining. Looks like visitors and everyone else is living it up. Dining, retail.
Correct.
Is that kind of the same thing for retail? Same explanation?
Right, correct.
Okay. Thank you, Sonia. Dan, did you want to add anything to that?
We'll have the CIP.
Guess not. Oh, you're going up there now. Sorry.
Yeah, he's going to the update.
Sorry, Mayor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just want to start off by apologizing for you having to put up with me instead of Allison this time around. She is actually with Brent Stockwell and with our purchasing director, Jen Myers, attending a Bloomberg Cities symposium on reforming government procurement processes. So I'm sure they're going to come back with some great ideas to improve the way that we do things here. I am going to follow the same agenda that Allison normally uses. I'll start with an update on the bond projects. and then highlight a couple of other non-bond CIP projects. The first question, I'll highlight a couple of things here. Project number 2, excuse me, the splash pad at McCormick-Stillman Railroad Park, I'm going to highlight on the next slide with some details. Project number 42, the dog park at Thompson Peak Park. I know we've gotten a lot of people getting excited because they've seen construction fence up there at that site. It is not actual construction. The construction is still scheduled to start in the fall. We're still finalizing the design on that. What's happening now, though, is the native plant salvage that's required prior to going in and doing the construction. So there is some activity, and people are rightfully excited. Project number 53, just below that on the chart, build multi-use sports fields in the area of Bell Road. Just wanted to highlight the Parks Department is doing a grand opening on Thursday. I think it's at 6 p.m. to celebrate the it's nearing completion from our perspective. There's still some things to do to close out the contract, but the fields are in service, the park is open, and it's a nice accomplishment. I chose to highlight the McCormick-Stillman splash pad because it's always a good opportunity if I can get 3 smiling council members' faces on the screen. And thank you for all of you who came out last month and supported the groundbreaking for 2 projects. This was one of them. The other was the general fund funded project to build a new roundhouse. And that project, with its air-conditioned space and its indoor railroad-themed play structure, and this with the splash pads on the outside, is going to make McCormick-Stillman Park the place to be for kids in the summertime, which is, I think, going to be a huge thing.
Awesome.
There you go.
Ben, Kathy, if you're, Councilwoman Littlefield, I don't know if you had a comment, but we might need to turn our mic off unless you're ready to speak. Thank you.
Okay.
Question 2, I'll highlight the solar projects, 3 solar photovoltaic projects. Project number 57 is the installation that we completed at the North Corporation Yard that's going to provide power to the municipal buildings in that area. The exciting thing on that one is that we're actually going to be able to put it into service. The panels have been up. I've been showing them off for a year now, but we had to complete a new service entrance to meet APS requirements to connect it to the grid so that we can fully implement that photovoltaic array that's going to go into service very shortly. And then the other 2, 58 and 59, I will highlight. These are both solar photovoltaic projects in the Civic Center area. This first one was a project specifically for City Hall, for this building. It was originally envisioned, you can see the graphic, is from our original outreach. We calculated how much, based on the square footage of the building, 250 kilowatts. It might or might not be that. APS has limitations based on the demand of the building that we're supplying power to. But we're going to sort that out in the design process, which is now ongoing. We have a design build team with Amoresco as the lead, developing what exactly this is going to look like. And then the same team is working on the other bond project to provide solar photovoltaics in the Civic Center area. This is was originally envisioned to put rooftop solar on several different buildings. We're not going to go with rooftop, primarily because of maintenance considerations. We're looking at putting parking lot canopies up, similar to what we did at North Corp Yard. That is going to be a change in the scope because the scope, the original scope of the project specified rooftop. We are going to take that through the CBOC, the Bond Oversight Committee, and to you ultimately for approval of that change. But we're going to get the same bang for the buck. We're going to get the solar photovoltaics generating power. The 2 locations that you see here on the left That is the site of another bond project to build the parking beyond the center field fence of the stadium. The thought is that with the parking, we build the shade or the canopy structure with photovoltaics, and it creates shade, and they can host events in that parking area. It's a multi-use parking area is kind of the vision that we're looking at with that project. And then on the right is solar panels on the roof of the existing Civic Center Library parking garage. Bond question 3, I would like to point out project number 12, the update to the 15-year-old digital train model. We are entertaining a proposal to cancel this project. And the reason is because the IT department has gotten the data that this project was going to get for us without having to pay for it. The county has collected digital terrain elevation data, and it's available to us. It meets the same need that we were going to meet with this project. So IT is actually bringing a proposal to the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee next week so that they can consider making a recommendation to you to cancel this project because we don't need it, and to reallocate the funding to another IT project in question 3, which is an allowable use. So just wanted to point that out. I'm going to highlight project number 29, the workstations at the 911 Dispatch Center. This is page 2 of the bond question 3 projects. This is project 29, the workstations at the 911 center. This is the new real-time crime center. The project involved actually building a floor over an open space in what used to be an atrium that was open to the above the second level. We filled in that floor space, equipped it, and they are actually moved in as of a couple of weeks ago. This project is going to be on your completed project list very shortly. And here's the completed project list. And just to highlight a couple of projects that are in construction. This is a very unexciting picture of the Miller Road Bridge project. This is starting from the south end. They're starting to do the flat work, the concrete curbs and gutter for the road, for the Miller Road extension that's going to cross the Rawhide Wash at this location. This is the very exciting picture for an engineer kind of guy. Maybe you're excited too, but 5 concrete pours to pour the deck of the bridge. All the under structure, the supporting structure is in place. We did the second of 3 pours last weekend for the southern half of the bridge. This is a picture from the first one of those. They do them at night, unfortunately, and that's when we can get the concrete delivered. That's when it's optimum temperatures and conditions to pour that amount of concrete. But we've been working with the neighbors and giving them advance notice and warning as to what's going to happen. And we have another pour scheduled for Friday of this week, and then late June we're going to come back in and do the northern half of the bridge. Another very important project, TPC Sewer. This is a sewer project. You approved a GMP for it a couple of meetings ago, and our contractor is off and running. Accelerated schedule. The goal is to do all this work alongside the northern edge of the Champions Course at TPC during the lower use period during the summer, and have minimal impact on the high season out at the golf course. And you can see it's a big pipe, it's a deep trench. We got crews working from each end, which is accelerating the schedule. And we are looking for the completion of the bulk of the work this fall. And this is just a picture. It's a beautiful picture of people enjoying a wonderful afternoon playing golf in Scottsdale, one of our beautiful courses. But I see the backhoe in the background digging the trench. That's exciting stuff. But we're taking great pains to minimize the disruption to the people on the golf course. They can play golf while we're doing this project. And then this is a project that is in design. This is one of our aquifer storage and recovery wells. One of 4 that we've been engaged in over the last couple of years, drilling and equipping. This one has been drilled. The location is at the southwest corner, the south end of the parking lot at the Scottsdale Sports Complex at Bell Road and Hayden, right next door to the TPC. And then the pictures that you see, right now there's nothing there. You can't tell that we've done anything. There's a hole in the ground that's covered up. But we're going to come in and build the enclosure and all the equipment to fully outfit that well. That is likely going to start in the fall. It's going to be a low bid. We're going to be bringing a bid to you for approval, most likely at one of the August meetings. And with that, I will entertain any questions.
Sure. Two things, Dan. I want to point out the Via Linda police station is 35 years old. It opened in 1989. It was the last project of Chief Michael Gannon, and then Chief Fred Collins took over as the third police chief of Scottsdale. So it's interesting, you know, how you were able to fill in that loft space, right? Here we are 35 years later doing that. The other thing that I'll point out, because there was some discussion, of course, on our expenses through for our water security, and obviously the storage wells that were and injection wells are sort of like they provide an ATM for our stored water. We store it and then we have to withdraw it. In fact, we store clean water, but the point with that concept is that, you know, our advanced water treatment and our water system, of course, it's all, the construction's under your purview, getting those things done, but the storage capacity that we have, underground storage, would be the equivalent of 1 square mile and about 80 feet high. Well, of course, nobody's going to build that on the surface, right? That would be a monster project. Yet we have at least 3 or 4 aquifers that store water underground and preserve the caverns, and that's really part of our infrastructure. And we can, if we can get to it and inject clean water and then extract it, why then that's a very useful thing. So those that's also a sign of our sustainability for our full system. I see Councilmember Graham and then Councilwoman Janik with some comments at this work study.
Thank you, Mayor. Dan, thank you for the presentation. As far as the solar panels or the solar panels that you're around the Civic Center, I really like the idea of not putting that on a roof and creating kind of a shade space. When do you expect to make a decision about site selection?
We have our design build team led by Amoresco analyzing that as we speak. And I think that the locations are the locations that I showed you are likely to be the ones that we end up with. I think.
Oh, you'll do both of them?
I think so. And the question is just going to be what kind of capacity are we going to be able to build it to?
Yeah. Okay. Very good. I look at the Miller Bridge, and I think that's you know, that's an essential part of our transportation network. I look at this slide 15 though, and you know, it's a photo taken at night, and we've gotten some calls about. Is that kind of stuff? Are those concerns from residents?
Mayor, Councilman Graham, we have gotten concerns from residents that are located next door to that project.
Yeah.
And we've been in very close contact with several of those residents throughout the duration of the project. And the unfortunate reality is that we pour concrete when we get the concrete, and for large concrete pours, we're generally forced to do it early in the morning, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes. The good news is 5 times.
Yeah.
It's not a recurring over the length of the project kind of thing.
Well, our apologies to the residents if we had to wake anybody up or disturb anybody. And then the last thing I was just going to say, I really like the way you're presenting the budget to actual and source. It would be, I think, helpful if we could get that for most or all the projects instead of just a select few, because I think that kind of highlights and just bam right there for everybody to see that. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Hey, Councilwoman Janik.
Thank you, Mayor. Nice presentation, Dan. Nice pictures. A quick question, and maybe it's premature, but your project number 59, the Civic Center campus, do you have any idea how long it will take for the payback on the solar panels? Are we looking at 7 years, 10 years? Don't know yet.
Mayor, Councilmember Janik, the payback period on those generally ends up in the 15 to 20-year range. We've run numbers on that. I think that's about where it is.
Okay, thank you. And I know there's other benefits as well, but I was just curious on the actual payback. Thank you.
Okay, I see no other hands up from council. And we will conclude the work study at this point. I see no other nods from any of my charters, our charters. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Please record your vote.
Yes.
Thank you. Good night.